There are moments on the road where you don't just pause, you remember, not with your mind, but with the part of you that's older than your name, older than your wounds, older than the stories people carved into you before you could speak for yourself. This is the story of that moment, the moment when the weight you've carried for decades finally lifted like ash, the moment when the ghost that shaped you stopped pretending to be your identity. The moment when the wind, the ancient one, the watching one, the one that carries the voices of the people who walked before you, decided you'd carried enough. This is where your fire returned, not as anger, not as defense, but as belonging, as truth, as the first breath of a man who survived what should have broken him long ago. Some stories begin with a spark. This one begins with the wind. The wind took my ghosts and gave me back my fire. By changing winds, I didn't just wander past my limits. I moved like a man who has spent years mistaking endurance for healing, dragging myself down a road that kept stretching because I refused to stop. Only when my shadow sagged did I realize the miles weren't the burden. The history on my back was. My shoulders didn't carry fatigue, they carried a deep vibration, a bone-level tremor that comes from holding too much truth in a body never given a chance to rest. It was the sound of weight that began in childhood and never got set down. This wasn't the ache of age, it was the inheritance of survival, a generational kind of heaviness handed to me long before I knew how to say, "This isn't mine." I had become a vessel for burdens passed through silence, fear, loyalty, and the kind of love that forgets children have limits too. Grief became the first fire I ever knew. It stayed lit through every year. I had to pretend I was all right. The flame shaped my identity in secret, demanding that I be strong long before I knew what strength even was. I carried that torch like duty, even when it scorched me. Then came the church-made chains, the sermons wrapped in fear, the rituals that praised silence, the rules that crushed curiosity, and the theology that told me my voice was dangerous unless caged. They carved out parts of me and called the emptiness holy. At home, I learned the language of storms, slammed doors, whispered arguments, CPS shadows slipping through memory, adults drowning in their own wounds. I became the protector, the quiet shield, the one who never asked for anything because everyone else needed everything. I grew up fast, out of necessity, not choice. Then ahead, a column of smoke rose gently, thin as a single thread pulled from the horizon. It didn't command me, it beckoned me. It felt old, older than the land, older than every fear I'd inherited. It felt like Shuni Shoboli had been watching me crawl under the wrong weight for decades. My hands shook, not from weakness, but from years of gripping memories so tightly they had fused with my bones. Letting go felt like betrayal and freedom in the same breath. My palms opened slowly, as if they weren't sure they were allowed to release anything. I felt it then, the accumulated silence, the swallowed emotions, the doubts carved into me by religion, family, and expectation. All of it humming like a trapped animal finally sensing the door might open. A wind rose at my back, not soft, not warm, a sacred wind, the kind that carries ancestors in its teeth and moves only when truth demands it. It brushed the nape of my neck like a hand older than memory. The first burden lifted. The lie that I wasn't native enough, that blood needed permission, that ancestry could be debated by people who didn't know. The stories burned into my bones. It rose into the air and dissolved like mist. Ash peeled from my back, thick, dark, stubborn, a lifetime of trying to be the man everyone needed instead of the man I actually was. The sky caught it, carrying pieces of my past into a place where they couldn't return. I watched the child who learned too early to become armor for others lift into the smoke. I watched the teenage boy who joined the Navy after 9/11, out of fear and duty and confusion, rise into the air beside him. Both versions of me finally stepped into the sky. The fears loosen next, the fear of being too much, the fear of being not enough, the fear of abandonment if I ever stopped performing. They cracked and fell away like ice breaking under sunrise. Deer stepped from the tree line, eyes deep with ancestral memory. It didn't run, it simply watched, as if acknowledging that I had finally begun the walk I was always meant to make. The wind shifted again, heavier now, carrying the voices of every self I abandoned to protect others. Their whispers felt like homecoming, like forgiveness I didn't know I needed. The path widened as I moved, as if creation itself was relieved to see me returning to the shape I was born for. My breath deepened, my steps steadied, something inside me finally exhaled. The ash kept falling, slow, steady, ceremonial, each flake a memory released, a burden surrendered, a piece of a story that never belonged to me. By the time the air cleared, I felt the earth recognize me again, and then the truth settled, not whispered, but declared by the land itself. No spirit can walk toward Shuni Shaboli while dragging the curses given to a child. To rise, you must return yourself to the fire that made you. And when the fire quieted, when the ash settled into the roots of the earth like history finally laid to rest, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child, trying to make sense of a world too heavy for my hands. Silence. That didn't hurt. The wind circled once, slow and deliberate, lifting the last thin veil of who I wasn't from my shoulders. It didn't tell me what to become. It simply said, "Now you are free to walk as yourself." For the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't brace. I didn't shrink. I stepped forward with the fire at my back, the moon above my spine, and the voices of every version of me finally walking beside me instead of behind. And the earth whispered its final blessing, the one I had been trying to earn my whole life without knowing it already belonged to me. You made it home, not to a place, but to a self I had been carrying like a forgotten ember all these years. The wind took my ghosts, the fire gave me back my name, and the path ahead opened like it had been waiting for this exact moment of becoming. I don't ask because it's easy. I ask because I believe these words matter. Every story here, every frame, every line, every voice takes hours of life, love, and breath. I pour it in because I still believe art can move the needle and truth can outlast the noise. If these stories have lit something in you, help me keep the flame alive. Like it, share it, speak it forward, and if you can, help fuel the next fire. Patreon, patreon.com, Changing Winds Podcast. Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Changing Winds Podcast. Cash App, Changing Winds Podcast. Venmo, at Changing Winds Podcast. Every spark matters. Every hand that reaches keeps the light alive. One planet, one family, one home.